Article 8, Acquisition of Agricultural Preservation Restriction, Stonefield Farm. Mr. McGee moves that, 1, the town authorize all actions set forth in the article. 2, the town appropriate $1,230,000 to pay costs of acquiring an agricultural preservation restriction, conservation restriction, and trail easements for a 51.5-acre portion of the real property located at 79, 91, and 99 Martin Street, 10 Liberty Street, and 36 Stowe Street, as set forth in the article, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto. 3, to meet this appropriation, $1,230,000 be transferred from the open space set-aside portion of the Community Preservation Fund balance or pursuant to any other enabling authority. And 4, the Select Board, the Town Manager, the Treasurer, and the Conservation Commission are authorized to take any other action within their respective jurisdiction necessary to carry out the project specified in the article. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Mr. McGee, to your article.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Again, my name is Andy McGee. I'm the chair of the Acton Open Space Committee, and I have the privilege tonight of speaking to you about Article 8, the preservation of Stonefield Farm in South Acton.
The right button.
The right button. Thank you. Article 8 calls for the appropriation of $1,230,000 from the existing open space set-aside fund for the purchase of a permanent agricultural preservation restriction / conservation restriction on the 51.5-acre Stonefield Farm in South Acton. And this action is being done in association with the purchase of the property by the Boston Area Gleaners, a nonprofit food rescue and hunger relief organization. Stonefield Farm is located in South Acton, the corners of Martin Street, Liberty Street, and Stowe Street. You probably know where it is if you've ever played ball at Jones Field. When you hit a foul ball over the screen, the ball landed in the farm fields at Stonefield Farm. If you've ever bicycled on the Assabet River Rail Trail, you have passed approximately 800 feet of the farm that immediately abuts the rail trail, including some of the fields as well as some of the conservation lands or some of the open space on that property. And some of you may remember when the Simeons used to run a spring market here where they would sell starter plants, flower baskets, etc. So some of you may know it. Property again extends to the south down into Maynard, or to the border with Maynard. An aerial photograph looking at the property. You're sort of above the center of the property here, looking to the north. You can see it abuts immediately Jones Field to the north. Off in the northeast distance there is the train station. Over to the far northeast is Exchange Hall, and then to the immediate east is Cowett Farm Fields, which we purchased in 2010 using community preservation funds, and so as to preserve those lands as farm fields, and they are currently leased by the Simeons for farming associated with Stonefield Farm. Looking the other direction, we're now looking to the south, and again, we're looking over the main campus, the building campus of the farm as well as the farm fields. But you see off to the south, the land becomes batched to its natural state, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. Again, we are not purchasing this property. We are purchasing a permanent agricultural preservation restriction on the property. The Boston Area Gleaners are purchasing the property. They are a nonprofit hunger relief organization whose mission is to support an equitable, just, and sustainable local food system. The Gleaners work with farmers and volunteers to do exactly what it sounds like. They glean food from farms and from farms that is not being utilized, produce that's left in the field. Doing so, they create a direct link between farms and those in need. They also contribute to the reduction of food waste and also promote long-term farm sustainability. In doing this, they bridge the gap between approximately 40% of crops that remain in the field at the end of the season that go unharvested, and link that with the 1 in 7 Massachusetts residents, including 1 in 5 households with children that are food insecure. In doing so, they currently partner with approximately 80 local farms, 550 hunger relief organizations, and 4,000 volunteers, and you are all welcome to volunteer with the Boston Gleaners. The Gleaners, into their initial year in 2004, gleaned approximately 8,000 pounds of food, representing 10 crops. In 2019, they gleaned just short of 1 million pounds of produce and 60 crop varieties. To date, they've gleaned approximately 10 million pounds of surplus produce, the equivalent of 40 million servings of fresh fruits and vegetables. But again, we are purchasing the agricultural restriction on this property. So what does that mean? The agricultural restriction is exactly what it sounds like. It puts a restriction on the use of the property. It's an agreement between the town, the state, and the land's current and future, and the land's current owners for their land's current use and future use. It requires approval of the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture. It runs with the land in perpetuity, regardless of the ownership. If the Gleaners aren't there, the property will still be maintained as agriculture and/or open space. And it's monitored annually for that through a compliance process. Under the APR that we're purchasing from the Gleaners, we will permanently preserve approximately 28 acres of farmland, including the 4-acre farm campus, the building campus, and any future buildings on the farm will be limited to the 4 acres of the existing farm campus, the building campus. We will also permanently preserve 23 acres of upland and wetlands for conservation purposes. In doing so, we'll create passive recreational opportunities in the form of trails, et cetera, in the conservation lands, as well as the potential for a linkage, as I mentioned before, about 800 feet of the farm directly abuts the Assabet River Rail Trail, and there's the possibility of making a rail trail diversion that would come into Martin Street if in the future a farmer or the Gleaners had a farm stand at that location. You could reach it through not just Martin Street by driving, but you could also get there by your bicycle. Obviously, the project would also encourage the continued as well as new farming enterprises, including educational and volunteer opportunities, support sustainable agriculture and hunger relief organizations throughout the region, and support regional farms through their partnership with the Boston area Gleaners, including our own Concurrence Farm, which is a member, a partner in the group. So the way under the Community Preservation Act, we can spend up to the appraised value of a property or an agricultural restriction or conservation restriction. And that is an appraised value, not an assessed value. It's an independent appraisal. In this case, it's appraisal, what is the value of the property if you developed it? What is the additional value of the property if you developed it versus if you lose all development rights through a restriction? The appraised value was determined to be $1.9 million. We have come to an agreement with the Boston area Gleaners to purchase that $1.9 million value for $1.2 million, a $700,000 discount off of the potential development rights of the property. And I think this reflects on the Gleaners. They want to see farming continued and farmlands protected, and they are willing to take this discount. So where are we going to get this funding? This requires no new taxes, no new funds. This is all coming from the existing open space set-aside balance of $1.9 million. This is monies that town meeting has voted through the community, or the Community Preservation Committee has recommended to town meeting, and you have voted over the years to take some of the community preservation funds and put it into a separate fund solely for the purchase and protection of open space, including farmlands. That balance, as I say, is currently $1.9 million. The Stonefield APR purchase will be $1.2 million. It will also be $30,000 for the long-term monitoring of the project, which is, again, a requirement of the APR. And that will leave us with an open set-aside balance of $671,000. You will have an opportunity in the next article to increase that value. This article is incredibly inconsistent incredibly consistent with town planning and town meeting votes in the past. The Acton Open Space and Recreation Plan specifically references the protection of existing agricultural parcels and support of local farms and farming. The 2020 Comprehensive Community Plan similarly identifies the preservation of farmlands and farming as a major goal of town planning, and indeed that document's vision statement specifically recognizes the protection of our existing and decreasing farmlands. The 2010 town meeting, as I mentioned earlier, voted to purchase the agricultural fields adjacent to this property to preserve farming at this location, and those lands have currently been leased by the farmers of Stonefield Farm. And more recently, in 2019 town meeting, we voted overwhelmingly to support the creation of a Town of Acton Agricultural Commission, as well as formally identifying Acton as a right-to-farm community. Article 8 has been favorably recommended to the town by the Select Board, by the Finance Committee, by the Community Preservation Committee, by the Open Space Committee, and by the Agricultural Commission. Please vote yes, and thank you very much.
Thank you. What is the recommendation of the Select Board?
The Boston Area Gleaners are a unique organization, and this is a unique opportunity to be able to preserve this land with the agricultural and conservation restriction. The Select Board voted to recommend this article.
Thank you. The recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Finance Committee recommends this article. To be able to save this property in perpetuity is a great asset to the town of Acton, and it was voted on unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Michael Bialis, 80 Willow Street. You've said that this restriction is permanent. The recently passed Section 3A of the Massachusetts Zoning Act establishes a new requirement that communities such as Acton with a commuter rail station have at least one zoning district in which multifamily housing is permitted as of right, with a minimum density of 15 units per acre and not be more than 1/2 mile from the commuter rail station. It is going to be difficult to establish such a zoning district within 1/2 mile of South Acton Station without displacing homeowners or businesses. But without establishing such a district and having the required housing built, Acton could lose millions of dollars in state funding. This year was exceptional, but in 2021 we got $3 million from these funding sources. Of course, there are many positive reasons why building such housing would be an asset to Acton, but I won't, including but not limited to environmental benefits. I won't go into that at this time. If in the future the town determined that a parcel such as the 2-acre parcel at 36 Stowe Street, that's the parcel right across from Jones Field, were the best site for such a zoning district, is there any way that the conservation restrictions, conservation or agriculture, I'm not sure which one covers that parcel, could be lifted on such a parcel to fulfill the town's obligations and best use?
You may respond.
The answer is yes, there is a process for lifting an agricultural or conservation restriction, but it is an onerous one. It requires the agreement of the owner, the other holder of the agricultural restriction, an independent holder. It requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting, and it requires a 2/3 vote of the legislature. That said, it does happen every year. That all said, if I may speak to your comment about the particular parcel, the parcel you reference is within the 100-year floodplain and would not be suitable for any housing, let alone low income or housing of any sort. So I think the question is sort of moot on that parcel.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Thank you. A speaker outside?
Yes, speaker at the front.
Hi. All right, speaker at the front microphone. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Greg Voss. I live at 8 Mohawk Drive. I've been an Acton resident for 35 plus years. I have been around the Boston Acton Gleaners now for 4+ years, and I can speak directly to their operations and the people involved. They are dedicated people to feeding the hungry. Believe it. They go out of their way time and time and time and time again to include the hungry and their neighbors in their operations. Please vote yes for this APR restriction that Acton will own and be able to control in the future. It is a tremendous asset for Acton to have a working farm and a tremendous working group of people. They encourage all of you to come out and volunteer. We may even be setting up some tours of the farm. It's a tremendous operation and a tremendous opportunity for everyone here in Acton. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone inside.
So I was just trying to understand.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, Derek Robinson, 3 Old Colony Lane.
Thank you.
Acton. I'm trying to understand why we need to purchase this parcel as a town. It has no frontage, so it's not going to be developed into anything. So it's going to stay green land, regardless of whether we purchase it or not, unless we vote to change the frontage. So it seems like we don't need to spend $1.2 million on it. We can just let it continue to be a family-owned farm, and we don't have to worry about it.
Mr. McGee.
Actually, the appraisal assumed a 16 lot roadway coming off of Martin Street, which would be would need planning board approval, but it's basically an appraisal has to be an as-right development. So we're not talking about frontage lots. We're not talking about A&R lots, approval not required lots. We're talking about a subdivision that could very easily be built on this property. And this property is, as Stonefield name suggests, is very perkable. So no, this is very much a property that is risk. And the appraisal was based on that. And the appraisal says that value is $1.9 million, and we're buying that value for 1.2.
Fair enough, but it still seems like we could just vote against allowing it to be developed.
You may vote how you choose this evening. Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
This is Tara Fredericks from West Acton. I'd like to remind people that frontage can be created by subdividing by right. It doesn't need approval by anybody. I would also like to correct the housing choice legislation is only for people that want these grants. These grants have largely gone to projects, developer projects that are not affordable for people working in the shops, for people making less than $50,000 a year. Acton has about 30% already very affordable housing. We need to protect those, and I hope the selectmen prioritize a rehab trust because it's the most efficient, fastest way to get the most affordable housing is for the town to engage.
Your comments are verging.
Thank you. And I vote yes for this.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Yeah, Martin Gretz, 49 Stowe Street. When I moved there 40 years ago, I was delighted to find a working farm practically across the street. But I seem to have missed a couple of things the past couple of years. Is it that the Simeones sold the farm to Boston Gleaners?
Mr. McGee.
Yes, they are in the process of selling it. There is a purchase and sale agreement. The Boston area Gleaners are the buyers of the property, and I understand that closing will occur in July.
Okay, then the follow-up is, are the Boston Gleaners planning to continue to make it an active farm as distinguished from being a warehouse to stockpile food?
Go ahead.
The Gleaners have historically been a distributor of food. They collect and distribute. They have been, as my discussion, my slides discussed, they went from a very small operation to a large operation, and they have changed their modus operandi. They would like to do farming. They would like to supplement some of the crops that are not typically able to be gleaned and be able to supplement that here in the farm. So the farm is indeed going to remain as farm fields. And if it's not farm fields, it will remain as open space.
Okay, thank you.
We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bill Clower. I've known the Simeons for 71 years. When I first moved here, they took care of the orchards behind my house. We're now in a different age. The orchards are long gone. You bought it many years ago as conservation land, but it'll never be orchards again. This is a chance to buy a piece of land which has been farmed, and we hope to continue it as a farm. And I hope you will vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Morse. I live in South Acton. I've gone to that lovely farm for many, many years buying plants because they had some of the finest plant material that I could put in my garden. I think it's quite extraordinary to have a family be able to keep farmland for over 100 years. And it speaks to not only the history and the heritage of our country, which of course was agrarian before the Industrial Revolution, but it also speaks to what Acton has as values. We do protect open land. We do try to make certain that wetlands and wildlife areas are protected. But if that is done in an extreme fashion, it can appear to be somewhat self-serving or perhaps a little indulgent. In this case, it's an elegant idea. I compliment Andy and his team. I compliment all of the people that have worked to do this, because we have the opportunity to do something that is really organic to the 21st century values, which have to do with the recognition that people have food needs, that food security is real, that we can participate as a town in an agrarian experiment and make a difference. Plants are foundational to life. Only the sun is more foundational to life than plants. So to have these acres, 51 acres, at the bargain price of $1.2 million, already put aside in Andy's little bank account with the community preservation funds, doesn't cost us anything. We've paid already, and we get to be part of something that is really wonderful, which is being a community that cares about others, being a community that sees to it that open space is continued, but that it is put to a purpose, which
Your
is
time has
absolutely
expired.
important. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
The speaker at the front microphone.
Hi, I'm Ann Anderson, 28 Minuteman Road. I've been an Acton resident for 31 years. I share the concern of the first speaker. The gleaners sound wonderful. I'm glad this land's being made such good use of, but I think we are going to lock ourselves out of significant grant opportunities if we don't create a zoning district within a half-mile of the MBTA station that allows multifamily housing as of right, without age restrictions, suitable for families with children, with a minimum density of 15 units per acre, then we will not be eligible for not just the Housing Choice Initiative that a previous speaker referenced, but also the Local Capital Projects Fund and the Mass Works Infrastructure Program, through which Acton received a significant amount of money this past year. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Franny Osmond. the previous speaker said a lot of what I wanted to say. I am very much in favor of this. Everything I've learned about the Gleaners, I've absolutely loved. I appreciate Acton Conservation Trust for giving tours recently of the land and meeting the farmers. And some of the people I met were some farm workers from Jamaica, who the one that's been here the shortest time has been coming for 14 years. And the one who's been coming the longest every year for 6 months of the year has been coming for 33 years. And they live in one of the houses. So my question to you is that house going to stay as housing for the farm workers? Is there an effort to keep those workers on? And is there a way to include housing within the plans? I thought I had talked to Mr. McGee in the past and heard that there was a way in parts of that land to have some housing. Can you just comment on the housing piece?
Mr. McGee.
Currently, there is one residential unit. There's an existing farmhouse that the Gleaners plan to use as their office buildings. The seasonal workers do live on campus, in housing on campus. I cannot speak to whether or not that will continue or not. That's the Gleaners. They will be the owners of the property. Certainly, our preservation will be of the agricultural use of the property and the conservation use of the property. That is what we're doing, not only for the existing owners or the proposed owners, the Gleaners, but all future owners.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
My name is Steve Hardy. I live in Acton on Arlington Street. Friends, I'd just like to point out that I'm standing next to Carl Seminomi right here, who is a fine and fantastic man and farmer. And I'd just like to simply thank him and that family for having this farm in our town for so many years. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone.
Good evening. Mike Gowing, 93 Harris Street. Aside from Andy's slush fund that this woman alluded to, I was part and parcel of acquiring the original Cowett property. This is our opportunity to preserve farmland. Farmland at Lakes Fallow is still open space. It's a win-win situation. I know we have housing issues. We have housing issues throughout Massachusetts. And I think that we need to be very careful about where we select our housing. I don't think it should be at the expense of existing productive farmland. Please support this.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the front microphone.
Call the previous question.
It's been moved and seconded to cut off debate. All who are in favor say aye. Any who are opposed, please say nay. The motion carries by the 2/3. This motion does require a 2/3 vote to pass. All who are in favor of Article 8, acquisition of agricultural preservation restriction on Stonefield Farm, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It's nearly unanimous.
Same in here. I declare the vote carries by the 2/3 majority.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to Article 9, Community Preservation Program. How we'll do this is I will read, until I get to the motion. I will read the motion. Mr. Yakubi will present, and then I'll read down through the list, and any that need to be held out for discussion or questions, you will call out, same as the previous articles. We'll vote what's left, and if there are any held, we'll discuss them. The motion is, Mr. Yakubi moves that the town, 1, transfer to and from the Community Preservation Fund and reappropriate, or set aside for current or later appropriation $1,864,414.03 as set forth in the revised article handout, and 2, Authorize the town manager to expend or set aside amounts as set forth in the revised article handout and in compliance with conditions to be noted in the Community Preservation Committee's award letters. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Yakubi, to your motion.
Good evening. My name is Ray Yacobi. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. The Community Preservation Act, otherwise known as the CPA, was adopted in 2000 by the state of Massachusetts as a smart growth tool that helps communities preserve open space and historic resources, create affordable housing, and develop outdoor recreational facilities. Community preservation monies are raised through the imposition of a surcharge of not more than 3% of the tax levy against real property, and municipalities must adopt the CPA by ballot referendum. Local funds collected are matched each year by the state. The town of Acton adopted the Community Preservation Act in 2002 at a 1.5% surcharge. The act requires that 10% of state trust fund and local collection be allocated to each of open space, historic resources, and community housing categories. So how do I get my slides to move? Okay, there we go. This year, the total balance available was $1,727,966. with a total of 15 project requests amounting to $2,263,263. The committee diligently evaluated each project based on the 2021 CPC plan goals and methodology. Due to the number of project requests and the total funding available, not all project applications were recommended this year. Of those 15 projects, the committee is recommending 13 projects to town meeting for funding this evening. You will note that the warrant handout provides corrections to the state match and interest earned that is reflected in this slide. This year, the CPC recommends funding 13 projects from the general fund balance and 2 projects which are debt service payments for 2 previously purchased open space parcels, Wright Hill and Piper Lane, to be funded from the open space set-aside fund balance. So now we're going to work through each of the items. Item A, the historical resource set-aside. The Community Preservation Act requires that 10% of the local collection and state distribution be allocated to the historic preservation category each year. This year, there were 3 projects that fell into the historic preservation category. All 3 historic projects are recommended for funding, but the total did not meet the 10% statutory requirement. The recommended $74,589.15 and the recommended project resource projects meet the 10% statutory requirement. These funds will be set aside for future historic preservation projects. You will note that the correction in your warrant handout, the state distribution and interest earned had a ripple effect in the appropriations for specific historic set-aside amount. The warrant handout and this slide show the 10% requirement based on the corrected state distribution and interest earned. Item B, the open space set-aside. Given that Andy's spending his money, we need to give him some more. The CPC has annually recommended at town meeting the incremental set-aside of CPA funds for the future acquisition and preservation of open space. Together, the parcels purchased by the town using CPA funds have approximated 92 acres to the existing town conservation lands. In addition, there will be a continuing bond debt service payment each year associated with the purchase of the Wright Hill Terrace and Piper Lane properties, which historically has come from the open space set-aside fund. C, the regional housing services. $34,000 has been recommended for 1 year of continued service with the Regional Housing Services Office. Acton's membership has been funded from FY12 through FY21 with CPA funds. Services authorized with an intermunicipal agreement. Current members include Acton, Bedford, Concord, Lexington, Lincoln, Maynard, Sudbury, Wayland, and Weston. The request represents 424 hours of effort. The community housing funding. The fund is used to finance new affordable housing initiatives and other activities eligible for Community Preservation Act funding under the support of community housing definition in the CPA. The ACHC or another Board of Select Board approved community housing entity may recommend proposed fund uses. Any proposed fund expenditure requires the Select Board's approval as provided in Massachusetts Home Rule Petition creating and setting forth the powers of the ACHC, Chapter 143 of the Acts of 1996. East Acton Housing Authority, the 348-346 Main Street development. $500,000 has been recommended to pay for the pre-development costs for the development of 40 units of elderly and disabled affordable rental housing at 348-364 Main Street. The housing units will be for low-income households whose income is below 6% of median income. 4 of the units will be barrier-free, all will be universally accessible, and 8 to 10 will be for households under 30% median income. 2 of the units will be 2 bedrooms to allow for live-in aid, and 6 of the units will be set aside for households under 60 with disabilities. The entire development cost will be approximately $15 million, and the community preservation funds will leverage millions in state and private financing. The Acton Housing Authority currently has over 100 local senior households on its waiting list. The Pencil Factory Bridge, $44,000 has been recommended to make one of Acton's important historical resources, the North Acton Pencil Factory, more accessible to the general public. The project will create a 320-foot accessible path through the Pencil Factory historical site from the Breese-Fruman Trail over Neshoba Brook via a new bridge into the information kiosk located on the trail through time. The project will be completed in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the design and permitting documents. Phase 2 would be bidding and construction. The $44,000 appropriation is for Phase 1 of the project. The town preliminary archaeological and historical view. The funds will be used exclusively for quick turnaround professional archaeological resource assessments to provide a preliminary assessment of the likelihood of finding significant archaeological or historical assets as a result of an application to the town department for further development. Such engagements would require only 1 to 2 days of field work and result in a written report. Estimates from local firms put the cost of such work between $1,100 and $1,500 per day. It is anticipated there might be just 1 or 2 such instances per year. The Acton Historical Society Textiles and Clothing Collection. Over the years, the Acton Historical Society has made a committed effort to document, catalog, preserve, and display donations of historical clothing and textiles. The growth of this collection, however, has reached the point where the Society needs professional guidance to improve our management of these items and continue to be good custodians of the collection. This funding will help to improve the management, storage, display methods to stabilize these artifacts and to ensure their availability to the community for years to come. The 53 River Street Park is item I. $100,000 has been recommended to assist the town in the 53 River Street Dam project with the final design and permitting. This request is to complete the engineering and permitting for the dam removal portion of the project. The total cost of the project is estimated to be $1.3 million, exclusive of park creation. The town hopes to find grants to fund the work. The dam and seawall repair or removal program has been identified as the most likely funding source, with grants with up to $1 million available. The Gardner Playground. $100,000 has been recommended toward the purchase and construction of new play structures, which was one of the outcomes of the results from the master plan and land survey for the revitalization of Gardner Field. Gardner Field, as you know, is located in West Acton at 530 to 532 Mass Ave. A master plan was created by Lemon Brook to refine the strategy, plans, and design of a new park. The existing park equipment is 24 years old, deteriorating, and not currently accessible. Gardner Field is within walking distance of the neighboring Acton-Boxborough schools. The towns and the Friends of Gardner Field were recently awarded official state earmarked funds totaling $150,000. Town of Acton Narrow Sports Pavilion. $240,000 has been recommended to complete Phase 2 of the Narrow Sports Pavilion facility in the south building. In 2016, the Recreation Department requested CPA funding for the renovation of 2 modular houses comprising the sports pavilion and was awarded funding for approximately half the project in 2019. The Recreation Department requested the remaining funding, but again was awarded half of the request. The south building, Phase 2, will house an urgent need for the Narrows Summer Camp office, on-site recreation office, snack bar, and a basement for storage of Albee recreation equipment. Both buildings will also serve as a shelter for campers in the event of severe weather. At this time, the south building, Phase 2, has the exterior complete. Funding is critical to the completion of the interior of the south building. The Jones Playground, $115,000 has been recommended to fund the poured rubber surfacing around all play structures at the current site of the Jones Field Playground. The poured rubber surfacing will allow for people with all abilities to access every piece of equipment at all access points. In addition to accessibility, the poured rubber is also a safer form of surfacing from all fall heights from the structures. Located in South Acton, Jones is the sole municipal playground in that area of town, convenient to many South Acton neighborhoods. In keeping with the town's recreation goals and the open space recreation plan, as well as the expressed desire of many residents for a fully accessible playground, is greatly needed. The last 2 items are more administrative. The town provides all the administrative and program support for the CPA. Since its inception in 2004, the Community Preservation Committee has recommended and town meeting has appropriated a portion of the CPA revenues for these support functions. To continue these services, the CPC requests $66,478 of revenues available for spending at the 21 annual town meeting that be appropriated to pay for the town of Acton critical administrative and program support. The last 2 items are debt service items. They're both recommended appropriations from the open space set-aside fund, which will pay for the annual payments on 15-year bonds, respectively, for each of the open space land. Wright Hill appropriation for the annual payment on the 15-year bond, and the Piper Lane appropriation will pay for the first annual payment on the 50-year bond.
Thank you. I'll now read down the list. Any that people feel need additional discussion or you have questions, please call out hold. Set aside appropriations for A, acquisition, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic resources. B, acquisition, creation, and preservation of open space and its rehabilitation and restoration. Spending appropriations. C, Town of Acton, Regional Housing Services for 1 year. D, Community Housing Program Fund. E, Acton Housing Authority, 348 to 364 Main Street Development. F, Town of Acton, Pencil Factory Bridge, Phase 1 Design. G, Town of Acton, Preliminary Archaeological and Historical Review. I, Town of Acton, 53 River Street Historic Park. J, Town of Acton, Gardner Playground, Phase 2. K, Town of Acton, Narrow Sports Pavilion. L, Town of Acton, Jones Playground, Servicing Expansion. I hear one.
Point of order.
Madam Moderator, we have a point of order from out here.
Yes.
What's your point of order?
You missed item H.
Turn on the back microphone.
Oh, okay. Thank you. H, Acton Historical Society, Textiles and Clothing Collection. J, Town of Acton, Gardner Playground Phase 2. K, Town of Acton, Neuro Sports Pavilion. L, Town of Acton, Jones Playground Servicing Expansion. I hear one. Is there a second hold? I do not hear any. M, a fund for CPC direct expenses and for reimbursing the Town of Acton for administrative services and operating expenses provided in support of the Community Preservation Committee. N, Wright Hill Open Space Land Acquisition Debt Service. And O, Piper Lane Open Space Land Acquisition Debt Service. We will now vote all of these items. Requires a majority vote to pass. All who are in favor of the Community Preservation Program direct appropriations from fund balances, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It's unanimous out here.
As well in here. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Article 10, Sidewalk Acquisition, 78 Taylor Road. Mr. Martin moves that the town take no action. Do I hear a second? I'll recognize Mr. Snyder-Grant.
I note that we're halfway through our agenda items, and the time is rather late. If we are going to consider having a second night, this might be a fine time to consider that. So I just wanted to make that suggestion in case you wanted the select board to discuss it or members to select it or whatever process would be appropriate. It seemed like this might be the right time to discuss that.
Thank you. First, can we just vote on Article 10 to take no action? Is there any comments from the select board on this, on Article 10?
So the issues surrounding these land purchases were just resolved hours ago. So the select board voted just today to recommend to take no action on this article.
Thank you. All who are in favor of taking no action, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay. The motion does carry by more than 2/3. All right, to Mr. Snyder-Grant's suggestion, it is now 9:36. We've been at this for 3 hours, and we have 7 articles left. People might start turning into pumpkins. It is supposed to rain tomorrow. We could be more efficient. We could just stay here and grind it out as long as it takes. Or do the selectmen have any thoughts? I'll take a comment from the back.
Yes, I would like to ask if you will yield the floor so that I may fix or propose to fix time to adjourn to a later date.
It would have to be tomorrow. What time were you thinking?
Whatever floats your boat, Madam Moderator.
Okay. So for people's information, drive up window, that's, I know people have feelings on. Release of restriction, I think, shall be fairly short. Article 13 and 14, the fossil fuel regulation, will be combined in presentation, and most of the effort will be in Article 13. have not heard a ton of controversy over that. Same with the solar thing. The big item, of course, is the dog park. And if you're willing, if we can work our way through these, we can set a time on the dog park. It is a non-binding resolution. I think the points that people want to make, even if each person doesn't get to say it, can be made in a short-ish time period. Same with Article 18.
We spent a half hour on a vote that
Excuse me,
was...
sir, do you have a point of order?
Yeah, sorry, point of order. We spent a half hour on a decision about 20 minutes ago that had one vote opposed. The idea that the dog park or the drive-in is going to take less than 40 minutes.
So let me propose
silly.
this. After each article, I will ask how many people have yet to decide how they're going to vote. We'll take 3 speakers from each side. If there's an overwhelming number of people who know how they're going to vote, we could take less if somebody were to move the question. But we should hear from a couple of major points on each side, if there are any. If you are fine with the articles as presented, we would certainly move on. I'm willing to work on this. It's 9:30. We're burning up time right now. Another hour. It would be difficult to come back tomorrow and get the same enthusiasm. Just saying. Any overwhelming sentiment over here?
Not that I can try to read a crowd, but I think the crowd here wants to keep going.
Let's go. People have, it's summer. I know. People probably are waiting for that. All right. Article 11, amendment zoning bylaw, drive-up window.
Point of order?
Yes.
Yes.
Madam Moderator, there's a person with a point of order here.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you dispense with reading everything so slowly? People have had a chance to read this.
Okay, I'll read fast.
And if people would please not thank everybody for this and that and talk about personal items, we could rush through this much more quickly, hopefully.
Thank you. The remaining articles are very short. I mean, motions are very short. Article 11, Mr. Charter moves that the town amend the zoning bylaw as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? Second. Mr. Charter, to your motion.
Thank you. So Article 11 proposes to amend the zoning bylaw to allow drive-up windows for pharmacies and restaurants in offices, business, industrial, and village districts, and will establish design standards for drive-up windows for banks, which are now allowed in most districts, as well as for pharmacies and restaurants. This article requires a 2/3 majority to pass and is recommended by the Select Board, the Finance Committee, the Planning Board, and the Economic Development Committee. The concept of allowing such drive-up windows has been brought to town meeting in the past, usually garnering a majority vote, but not the required 2/3 majority. At the request of the Select Board, the Planning Department conducted a public outreach program consisting of virtual public forums on October 15th, 2020, and on December 8th, 2020. Additionally, online surveys were conducted with 1,271 responses to the first survey and 704 responses to the second survey. In both surveys, between 73% and 77% of the respondents supported drive-up windows at banks, pharmacies, and restaurants in office, business, industrial, and village districts on a permanent basis. During my election campaign, and in the over 2 years since I've been approached many times by Acton residents asking why drive-up establishments are not allowed in Acton. and I've heard many accounts of Acton residents who drive to neighboring towns to use drive-up establishments, disadvantaging our merchants here in Acton. During the pandemic, interest in low-contact delivery systems, such as drive-thrus, has increased, with many folks expressing a desire to pick up medications and meals in a very safe and distanced fashion. Admittedly, the pandemic seems to be waning, but there have been many changes in our lifestyle that will probably become permanent, and there's always a possible next time. I have never been approached by any corporate entities lobbying for drive-up establishments, and I have no personal knowledge that any particular entity would avail themselves of the opportunity to establish a drive-up presence. But my feeling is that this measure is business-friendly, and over time some drive-through uses would be created as new buildings are created or existing ones modified. The Planning Board and the Select Board recognize that establishing drive-through presence is very site-specific. Issues of traffic, topography, aesthetics, noise, and impacts on neighboring businesses all need to be taken under consideration. For that reason, the proposal would provide that drive-through establishments must go through a full special permit process through the Select Board. During that process, the Select Board will take into consideration the viewpoints of neighbors, town departments, and town boards, such as the Design Review Board and the Historic District Commission. The Design Review Board has provided excellent feedback regarding what site-specific design issues should be looked at if this zoning bylaw amendment passes. To reiterate, Article 11 proposes to amend the zoning bylaw to allow drive-up windows for pharmacies and restaurants in offices, business, industrial, and village districts. It is a declared goal for Acton to be a pedestrian-friendly and village-centered community. But achieving those goals do not conflict with, nor do they trump, all other needs of our residents. There is an excellent pharmacy in West Acton, but due to the physical constraints of the site, installing a drive-up window would be very difficult. My feeling is that this pharmacy's excellent reputation and loyal customer base, they would not be impacted by another pharmacy on the other side of town having a drive-up window. Critics have said that we should encourage people to walk to locations to conduct their business, and I agree. However, there are only 3 pharmacies in Acton, which has an area over 20 square miles. So the number of people who will practically walk to a pharmacy is a rather small portion of our population. Critics have also stated that you should have a face-to-face encounter with your pharmacist. And again, I agree when that is necessary, and nothing in this proposal would prohibit such an interaction. This proposal would provide some good choices for our almost 22,000 residents. They would get to choose where to conduct their business, either in person or in a drive-up situation. But if you have mobility issues, or are immune compromised, or you have a sick kid in the car, or you just want to pick up a cup of coffee on the way to work, you would now have the option to receive services in a safe and well-regulated fashion right here in Acton. Thank you.
Thank you. What is the Finance Committee's recommendation?
The Finance Committee.
Across the country, drive-through ordering has surged over the last year as consumers have become more wary of entering enclosed stores and restaurants and have appreciated the convenience it brings. Industry experts believe that drive-through ordering will stay above pre-pandemic levels even after everyone is vaccinated. The Finance Committee believes that both the businesses and residents of Acton would benefit from drive-up windows facilities. Hence, the committee unanimously recommends this article.
Thank you. I believe the Economic Development Committee has a recommendation. Go ahead, sir.
Sure. By a margin of 6-2, the Economic Development Committee voted to recommend Article 11. We heard the concerns of small business owners, particularly in West Acton, who are worried that drive-up windows will diminish their ability to compete against larger chains, which tend to have the resources and infrastructure to add that service. The majority of the EDC supported this article for 4 main reasons. 1, drive-up windows are an act of inclusivity for the elderly, parents with young children, and those with limited mobility. 2, Local businesses like Acton Pharmacy have a loyal base that will not abandon them for the siren song of the drive-up window. 3, relatedly, we don't have data to show that drive-up windows correlate to or cause a decline in small businesses without them. And 4, we anticipate that the actual number of drive-up windows that would be created as a result of this article's approval would be minimal and thus would not substantially change the character of the town.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
Yes, Ruth Thatcher, 124 Prospect Street. I'm here as the Vice President of the West Acton Village Merchants Association. We call ourselves WAVMA. I have a statement. On behalf of our 43 members, the West Acton Village Merchants Association opposes allowing drive-up windows for pharmacies and restaurants in Acton. Founded in 1992, WAVMA's mission is to help foster a vibrant economic, cultural, and social community in West Acton. Tonight, voters will be asked whether they want to allow drive-up windows for pharmacies and restaurants in Acton. WAVMA is formally issuing this statement opposing the warrant article. WAVMA does not believe that allowing drive-up windows for pharmacies and restaurants in Acton will foster a vibrant economic, cultural, or social community in West Acton. Instead, WAVMA believes that allowing such drive-in windows will help large businesses and national chains at the expense of small businesses in both West Acton as well as other parts of Acton, which are already struggling. WAVMA believes that most small businesses throughout Acton cannot have drive-up windows for one or more of the following reasons. Their business building physically configuration make it impossible. They cannot afford the high cost of construction drive-in windows. They cannot afford the business disruption. Zoning and other village restrictions will not allow it. WAVMA appreciates the need for flexible customer service options, and we feel that curbside service has been shown to be workable and effective for all, and the fairest solution for businesses in all locations. Should this pass, which WAVMA hopes it does not, we hope that the town will focus on ensuring fair competition and ensuring that procedural aspects of permitting are achieved for existing small businesses. We urge voters to vote no.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back inside.
Yes, hello, my name is Tommy Whalen. I've been a resident at Harris Street for the last 15 years. My parents are well over 40 years. And to me, this is really simply about health and safety. I really feel that folks that are immunocompromised like my parents should not need to leave town in order to safely purchase their medicine and their food. While I understand and respect different people's viewpoints in opposition to this, I really believe that the health and safety of our residents should take precedent over everything. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
The speaker at the front microphone.
It's Tara from West Acton, and yes, the curbside has been working great, as the small businesses tell us. I urge you to be wary of a survey that can be done, answered by anybody, including this person that owns Dunkin' Donuts, 3 of them. They may be answering all of those surveys. CVS and McDonald's have requested the town. Maybe Dean never heard about it, but I have all the documents showing that they were. The Design Review Board voted against this, I think unanimously, the Historic District Commission as well. The DRB points out that the more curb cuts, the trash, the idling, I will just read from their statement. They're concerned about Kelly's Corner in particular, that we're spending all these millions of dollars to make it walkable, and then you're going to make it a drive-through rest stop area with 3 or 4 drive-throughs. Additional drive windows are antithetical to the planning efforts over the past decade or so to promote a less vehicle-centric environment, as exemplified by the Promotion of Clean Fleet Streets program, emphasizing more walkable streets, bike lanes, and public transit possibilities. Zoning change should not be instituted in times of uncertainty until the long-term effects of COVID on the built environment can be determined. the integration, they go on and on. These are architects that urge us to vote against this, and I also urge you to vote against it. Thank you. These small businesses that are begging you to vote no, they have had a terrible year. Give them a break. Thank you so much. Vote no. Thank you.
How many people know how they're going to vote? I'm seeing almost everybody. Is that true outside?
Most people already know how they're going to vote.
Okay. We'll vote. This does require a 2/3 majority to pass. All who are in favor of amending the zoning bylaw for drive-up windows, please say aye and raise your card.
Aye.
Okay, all who are opposed, please say nay.
It looks to me that the majority are opposed.
Okay. And inside, the more than 2/3 are in favor. So we're going to have to do a quick count. So all who are in favor, have you got counters, Bill? You're all set? All who are in favor, hold up.
I'll do an estimate, or do you want to bring forth the tellers?
Let's try an estimate. You guys can put your hands down. He's still counting outside, but you can put your hand down.
I'm ready.
Okay, all who are opposed, please raise your hands. Okay, put your hands down.
Madam Moderator, about 90 in favor and about 110 opposed.
By a vote of 145 to 141, the motion fails. Article 12, release of restriction at 127 Strawberry Hill Road. Ms. Gardner moves that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to take all actions necessary to release the restrictions as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? Ms. Gardner, to your article.
This is a public safety article. I took this slide from my car. This is on Strawberry Hill Road, looking across Pope Road. And if you want to turn left, you can see, you can't see down Pope Road. So removing this restriction, if you can see, I don't know how to do this. Well, you can see the map in your town warrant, and it's there it is. You can see that green slice across the front. That would improve the sight line, so it would be safe to turn from Strawberry Hill onto Pope Road. And I've lived north of this site, and I know that with Waze, there's a lot more traffic on Pope Road, avoiding the rotary, and people do travel at high speeds once they come up this north. The restriction setback was established in 1986. It was removed in 1989, and it was put back in 1991, and there were recording errors when the property changed hands. So I'm asking you to release this restriction tonight to improve the safety of this corner.
Thank you. The Finance Committee recommendation.
Speaker at the front microphone.
The Finance Committee voted to recommend this article.
Thank you. I see a speaker at the front microphone inside. Whoops, can't quite hear you.
My name is John Fox. I live at 179 Pope Road, so I'm directly adjacent to that property. We bought our property in 1989 and went through many hoops to meet the restrictions that were placed upon all of these properties that were part of the Damari Farm breakup. This is a historic corner. It's got a colonial house on it that's in context. It's a colonial house on the farm that it was originally built on a property that's still a farm. So it's not a historic property that's on Route 27 bordered by a gas station and a convenience store. This is the real thing. It's on the road that our Patriot Day parade goes down to go to Concord to celebrate the Revolution. It's that historic. It's also, there's a stand of trees there planted in the 1800s by Pope of Pope Road, which has been mentioned in histories of Acton. There are 130, 140-year-old stand of pine trees there that will be bulldozed down when what the property owner wants to do is develop this little 4-acre property into two 2-acre properties and build another residence there. And most importantly to the town, another residence goes up, a family with 3 kids moves in, it's $15,000 a year per child forever to educate those people, those children, and we as a town take that economic financial burden on from now going forward. And I don't understand why we release restrictions to do this. The sight lines are bad. I live there. The sight lines are bad. But the problem on Pope Road, as anyone here who's driven Pope Road knows, is the 50 miles an hour that people go on Pope Road. And that won't change unless we do what we suggested, a group of us suggested years ago, and were laughed out of the council for it, of just putting a stop sign there. Yeah. This is what they do in Concord.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
Maureen Christmas, 190 Pope Road. I live directly across from that intersection. In fact, my picture of my house was in Joan's picture. I've seen so many accidents there. They come by way too fast. They hit the tree in front of my house. They take my mailbox out, including one accident in May where they took my mailbox out as well as my neighbor's granite post, which they split into 3 pieces, and that wound up down at a 180 Pope Road, and it hit the tree 15 feet up. So it's the speed that is really getting people coming around. So a 4-way stop sign would be perfect right there because people could then see from either side. And if you're going to do the land swap and not do a 4-way swap, I think you need to have the land at the northeast corner. Those sight lines are also really bad. You can't see. When I travel from Concord home, I don't take Strawberry Hill Road because I can't see. I make sure I come at nighttime only so I can see the headlights coming from both directions. So I don't think swapping this land for the restriction is going to make that any safer unless a lot more things are being done.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Yeah, Walter Schiller, 127 Strawberry Hill Road. I'm actually the owner of the parcel that we are talking about here. My wife and I have lived in this beautiful place, historically, very interesting place in Acton. I've loved there, raised our family for 20 years. So we've been, taking care of this, and the aesthetics of this place is important to us. That is also why we have tried to follow through with actually this whole aspect of removing a restriction which actually is not on the books. So we're actually not removing a restriction, we're just acknowledging the fact that it has legally not been properly put in place. Town council can probably explain this better to you than I can. We have had a very agreeable process talking to the town about this in 2018 all the way into 2019, and then it came up last year and it was not explained to the voters in Acton, and so it fell through a year ago. Our hope is now that with the information that you're getting, you can see why the town council, the finance committee, and actually at the time we talked to the town, also the Acton Historical Committee was in favor of the removal, or rather acknowledging of the non-existence of this 200-foot setback restriction at this corner. We as property owners are interested in having a safe environment, and so obviously we are quite happy to have the town improve the safety on that corner, whether it's through a site easement, stop signs, or whatever it may take. I don't think it's a one or the other. I think possibly multiple things could happen. But I just want to urge you to please look at this as what it is meant to be. It is actually meant to site a house there in an aesthetic way. It is a divisible lot. We do have the right, and I would like very much for you hopefully to see that.
Thank you.
Is our intention. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone.
I'd like to move the previous question.
There's a motion on the floor to cut off debate. Is there a second? All who are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All who are opposed, please say nay. That is definitely a 2/3 vote to cut off debate. We'll now vote on Article 12, release of restriction at 127 Strawberry Hill Road. Requires 2/3 to pass. All who are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All who are opposed, please say nay.
I have about 50-50 in my eyeballs.
We have far more than that in here. It's a vast majority.
Do you want me to?
Is it about, yeah,
It's about 50-50, I would say, out here.
and you have about 200 people? Still?
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Do you want me to do an estimate?
Hold on.
A careful
All
estimate?
who are in favor inside, please raise your hand. Okay, all who are opposed inside? That does not meet a 2/3 by about 146 to 115. Do I hear anything?
When I said 50-50, it was 50%, 50%, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got about 200 people out there by the last count. Is that still true? It looks very similar to the last time we counted.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
It's
You
not,
wanna-
it's
should we
not,
bring
it's
forth-
not even close, really. 146 to 115.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to take one more swing out here? Just.
Yep, we can do that.
Just.
Okay.
All those in favor, please raise high. And all those opposed, please raise high. Yeah, it seems even
Okay.
50-50 or even a little more.
Yeah, that does not meet the 2/3. Article 13, amend general bylaws, regulation of fossil fuels infrastructure. Mr. Snyder Grant moves that the town amend the general bylaws as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? Wake up. I know. It's been moved and seconded. Okay. Would you care to make a motion? Until? There's a motion on the floor to adjourn until 7 p.m. at this location tomorrow, which is June 22nd. It's been moved and seconded.
Order? Oh.
That is debatable. Are
There's a
there any?
motion on- Hold on a second. I don't think people heard that motion.
Okay, I'll say it again. There is a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting until tomorrow at 7 p.m. at this location, and it's been seconded. That is a debatable motion. Are there any comments from the town?
We have a
meeting?
speaker out here at the front microphone.
Go ahead.
The Finance Committee would like it to be known that each meeting like this costs $20,000 to $30,000, so there is a significant impact in not bowling forward.
Mr. Martin.
I wonder if people are all comfortable meeting inside tomorrow. It's supposed to rain tomorrow evening, so we'd all be in the gym here. If we're not all comfortable meeting in the gym tomorrow, then I would suggest that we press forward tonight.
Any other comments? I see one inside. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I think that, I'm sorry, Claire Siska, Stowe Street, that I've been in Acton for 26 years, and I think the Select Board has done a wonderful job in getting this down to one night where it used to be 3. So I would respectfully ask that we continue with the meeting and finish. It's one night out of the year.
Thank you.
Let's not make it 2.
I see a speaker outside. I see someone outside.
No, they were speaking to the other article.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Let me clarify. I don't want to do this, but look around. How many people are left? And some of the articles we're talking are not trivial. I respect the financial considerations, but to steamroll just to get through the night, some of these articles have incredible import to the town. And for us to rush to it and vote because we're tired is not democracy, is not efficient, and in my opinion, is wrong. So that's why I made the motion. Not because I want to spend more money, not because I want to come a second night, but it's not fair to the rest of the citizens in this town who are not here, and most who have already left who were here earlier this morning. And by past meetings, a lot of people hung around a lot later than they normally do. I think they're getting tired. And that's not when you make good decisions.
Is there someone outside?
Yes, speaker at the front microphone.
Hi, real quickly, Deborah Symes, Concord Road. I want to say that, yes, there are not tons of us here now, and yes, it's a little later, but there will be even fewer people here tomorrow, especially if it's going to be raining, so please, let's continue. Thank you.
We'll take one final speaker here. Go ahead.
I agree with that, and how many of the people who have already left will even hear about the meeting tomorrow, and how many of them that hear about it will even come? I don't think you're gaining that much.
Okay. We will now vote, and this takes a majority to pass. So if you vote yes, that means we end tonight and come back tomorrow. And if you vote no, that means we continue on tonight. So all who are in favor of the motion, say aye. All who are opposed to the motion, say nay. It's quite overwhelmingly to continue on. So I'll make this suggestion. Instead of having a 2-minute Speaker limit, let's go with 1 minute, because almost everything that's been said could have been said in 1 minute. Just saying. All right. We'll start with Article 13. Mr. Snyder Grant moves that the town amend the general bylaws as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Snyder Grant.
Okay. I've struck a lot of lines through my deathless prose, so we'll try to make it shorter. Article 13 is a new bylaw that's an important first step in moving Acton toward the use of cleaner energy technologies in new and rebuilt buildings. And Article 14 asks the state legislature to allow us to implement the bylaw. Why are we doing this? Well, we've got a choice. We can have a future in which we've dealt successfully with climate change. We have a climate that's stable in a way that has allowed civilizations to flourish, or we have a calamitous future from accelerating climate change. When town meeting last September voted overwhelmingly in favor of declaring a climate emergency, that declaration was to do our best to get us down to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And these articles are a solid local start. Here's a simplified greenhouse gas reduction program. We're not going to talk about number 1, use less energy. We're not going to talk about number 3. And we're not going to talk about anything other than buildings. So we're not going to talk about transportation tonight or the other ways that fossil fuels enter our lives. Here's a summary of the new bylaw. Now, please notice that the necessary transition off of fossil fuels will not happen all at once. We need to start quickly, but there are important limits on how quickly that can happen, and they're outlined here as part of the bylaw. First, builders of new buildings can ask for waivers from the town in cases where current technology or prices require fossil fuels to make a use feasible. Next, the bylaw doesn't come into effect unless and until the state legislature passes enabling legislation. If the legislature does allow this, then Acton, Belmont, Concord, Lexington, Arlington, Newton, Cambridge, and other cities and towns that have passed similar bylaws and similar home rule petitions with the state will all have their building electrification bylaws enabled at the same time. And finally, this is just about new buildings and major rehabilitation projects. So I'd like to address some concerns that have come up. How do we know that these sorts of buildings are possible and affordable? So here's from Mark Doty, principal at Thought Forms Incorporated, headquartered right here in West Acton. I won't read the whole quote. I know from my own experiences that modern heat pumps can easily heat and cool well-insulated and air-sealed buildings without any backup heating systems at building and operating prices that are comparable or lower than a combination of fossil fuel heating and cooling systems. Some have expressed concerns about not having natural gas in new homes for cooking. What's changed in the last few years is that all electric induction stovetops have dropped in price and proven very popular among chefs. So I talked to Hamsha Naidu, creator of the popular cooking show Flavorful Eats that has been running for 100 episodes on ActonTV. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. She's very happy that she no longer needs to bring a dangerous gas into her house or into the ActonTV studio in order to cook. She loves how easy and fast it is to get things just the right temperature and keep them there. And she can cook with her grandchildren without worrying about them getting burned by touching the stove. Some have raised concerns about the impact on businesses. So most of our commercial spaces are part of larger buildings. The 50% limit that is applied that would require, if there's a major rehab that's more than 50%, then this bylaw applies. But most businesses will never encounter a situation in which the building owner decides to work on more than 50% of the total floor area at once. Now, some businesses do need new buildings. If a business has particular needs that can be met reasonably only with fossil fuels, They can apply for a waiver as part of the permitting process. That's why we have a waiver process, to allow valuable and desirable businesses to set up shop in Acton while still achieving as much progress as possible in Acton's transition away from fossil fuels. So by way of transition to Article 14, let's look at Section 2 of Article 13, which says that the bylaw won't come into effect until the state legislature allows us to regulate fossil fuel infrastructure. And Article 14 is just instructing the Select Board to ask the legislature for the authority. The reason we need that is because aspects of state law currently preempt municipalities' ability to regulate access to utility services. So this is a standard move called a home rule petition that towns can do to get special permission from the state. Our legislators have told us that any legislation that would pass in the legislature would allow all cities and towns to opt into these sorts of regulations, not just Acton. So let's join Concord, Acton, Lexington, Belmont, Newton, and Cambridge in showing our determination to address the climate emergency. The momentum will increase pressure on the legislature to do the right thing sooner rather than later in tackling climate change. And in tackling climate change, acting sooner counts for a lot. The more quickly we reduce our use of fossil fuel use, the better our chances to create the future we want. So please join me and many of your neighbors in voting for Articles 13 and 14. Let's vote now for a better future.
Thank you. What is the Finance Committee recommendation?
Yes.
Remember that the Finance Committee's job is to keep an eye on the financial health of the town. With that in mind, the Finance Committee is concerned that this bylaw change at this time will make people less likely to build and renovate in town. This lack of growth would result in higher taxes for the existing citizens and potentially lower home values as people move to towns that give them more freedom to install the heating and cooking systems that they want. The Finance Committee does not recommend this article. Based on our previous stated position, the Finance Committee does not recommend Article 14.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker. Am I recognizing you specifically on this article? Yes, go ahead. Economic Development Commission.
The vote of the EDC on Article 13 did not reach a consensus. The final vote was split, with 4 voting against, 1 in favor, and 3 abstentions. Some members expressed concern that the article was not business-friendly and would inhibit future businesses wanting to open in Acton. Others felt that there were still unresolved legal problems with the Attorney General's office in Massachusetts, and one member felt that the climate emergency was of sufficient urgency to warrant immediate action.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
Speak at the front microphone.
Peter Barry from Faulkner Hill Road. I'm speaking as an associate member of the Green Advisory Board. The Green Advisory Board's main emphasis is to identify, investigate, build the case for, and prioritize significant energy initiatives for the town and schools. Through energy efficiency initiatives over the past 10 years, the Green Advisory Board has reduced school and town carbon emissions by over 20%, leveraging over $1 million in Green Communities funding. The Green Advisory Board urges residents to pass warrant Articles 13 and 14. The articles would move Acton toward efficient, safe, and all-electric energy systems in most building construction and in major renovations of existing buildings. This spring, the town launched a climate action plan for Acton. This step follows on the heels of other significant actions the town has taken to confront climate change, such as participating in the state's Green Communities Grant Program, a declaration of a climate emergency, and the hiring of a dedicated sustainability officer. The climate action plan is still in very, please.
We're down to 1 minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
Please vote for the article.
Okay, I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Thank you. Greg Demiski, North Acton. I just wanted to bring to your attention that over the 35 years I've lived in this town, people have always been concerned about affordable housing. And I don't think an article such as this is going to help make houses more affordable. Just think you'll be tied to one company, the electric company. Everything's electric. No more gas, no more oil, just electric. I know that technology has gotten better all these years, but you're still going to be one provider. You take away the freedom to choose. I don't think this is a good article for the town of Acton, both for business nor for residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that right? Yes, you may respond.
Thank you. So this bylaw was actually written with affordable housing in mind. The large multifamily housing that's proposed, affordable housing that's proposed on Main Street is going to be all electric, except for hot water, because hot water can't be done in a technologically and financially feasible way. So the bylaw specifically has an expedited exemption for hot water in buildings over 10,000 square feet. And finally, the bylaw does include a specific language that has the building commissioner take into account the nonprofit status of builders when considering waivers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
The speaker at the back microphone.
My name is Peter Chazinski from 10 Robin Wood Road. I lived here since 2005. I am totally for confronting climate change. I have a degree in meteorology and I see the change by my own eyesight. However, this article number 13, is ill-conceived in that with so many waivers, it will simply not happen. We need to assess our homes for greenhouse production and tax accordingly, whatever the technology. In other words, we need to go after the problem and not the technology, especially laser focus on gas. How about fireplaces? What about coal? Not mention any of this. So again, please don't support Article 13, hoping that you guys, whoever, will come up with a better version of that same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone.
Thank you. David Hoffman, 3 Half Moon Hill. I've lived in Acton for 40 years. It's very exciting to me that Article 13 is on the floor for discussion, because it represents an opportunity for Acton to exercise leadership in a grave moral crisis that our entire planet faces. I strongly support the article. I think the waivers are very thoughtfully designed to balance economic concerns and affordable housing with climate change. We owe this to our kids. We owe this to our grandkids. Our planet is in peril. It's time for us to act decisively. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
Speaker at the front microphone.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is William Hart. I live at 102 Charter Road, and I'd like to discuss choice. We all enjoy choice in this country. We enjoy choice of selecting the color of a car, deciding whether or not where we want to live, and this article takes choice away from us. It takes away the ability for us to decide whether we want to moderately use gas or moderately use some other source of energy. Solely pointing towards the use of electricity is an extreme burden to the utility company and to the infrastructure that the utility company has, and that cost will be borne by the ratepayer. As everyone begins to use electricity as the sole source of energy, it's going to be impossible for Eversource to supply that amount of electricity in this town with the infrastructure that they have. So this is going to have an effect on commercial development.
Thank
For
you.
years we've tried to develop.
Your time has expired. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone inside.
Hi, I'm David Martin. I live on High Street. This initiative is incredibly important. We can't continue to build buildings that last 50, 75, 100 years and expect to get to net zero in 20 years. That just doesn't work. We can't burn plan to burn fossil fuels for the next many decades. Secondly, the way things are right now, it's actually less expensive to build an all-electric house than it is to build a house that's heated with gas. It is slightly more expensive to run, but it's less expensive to build, and so it's basically a wash.
Thank you. We'll recognize a speaker from outside.
Speaker at the back, microphone.
Hi, my name's Karen Watkins from 126 Strawberry Hill Road. I'd like to speak to the issue of the right to choose which energy systems we use. I understand we all want the freedom to choose, but if we had come to you tonight with a proposed bylaw on lead paint, would any of us say, oh yeah, I want the right to use whatever paint in my house, even if it's lead? Now, it may seem that energy systems are a completely different issue, but I don't think so. I think we would support restrictions on lead paint because we care about the health and the future of our kids, and we also care about the value of our home. When we look at climate change, we are talking about the health and the future of our kids and of the open spaces that we voted for earlier.
Your time has expired.
Please support this.
Thank you. I will recognize the speaker at the back microphone inside.
Miles Fidelman, 531 Old Stone Brook. Two things. One is the issue of electric prices is a red herring, given that we have a competitive electric market and we have a very active and effective aggregation program in Acton. But what no one has mentioned is that our gas infrastructure is failing. We have leaks, we have explosions, and the price of gas is just going to keep going up. Anything that we do to accelerate getting away from gas is for the good.
Thank you. We'll recognize a speaker from outside.
Speaker at the front, microphone.
Thank you. Judith Ehrenstein, 3 Gregory Lane, Acton. I'm one of the founding members of Mothers of Front Acton, and my passion in the last 4 years has been gas leaks. But gas leaks aren't the problem. When we figured out the explosions got people's attention, gas leaks weren't the problem as explosions. The problem is gas leaking into the atmosphere. Gas leaks from the wellheads to transmission to compression to under our streets to into our houses. Gas is 85 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So we need to come off of gas, and in March of this year, Governor Baker signed the comprehensive climate change legislation calling the state to achieve net zero by 2050. So every building that we build in 2021 with gas or propane, we're going to have to retrofit that building in the next 10 years.
Your time has
maybe
expired.
20 years. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. The front microphone inside.
Michael Bialas, 80 Willow Street. We all want to save the world. We all realize, well, a lot of us realize that the environment is going to make our children's lives much more difficult if they live at all. But, we always say but we don't want to give up anything for it. Oh, we're worried about future business. We have to do this. We have to give up something for our children. And in terms of choice, you can choose whatever color car you want, but you're choosing to harm my children. I don't think we should do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
Speaker at the back, microphone.
Tara from West Acton. I feel like I have more choice with electric. I have a competitive electric market as well as I can have solar. It is a climate emergency. We got to do this ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker at the back microphone inside.
Hello, Joseph Buckgrossi, Falconer Hill Road. Given that most people have made their arguments, can we put this article to a vote, motion to skip to a vote?
To move the previous question. There's a motion to cut off debate. All who are in favor, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay. Debate is cut off. We will now vote on the article 12, 13, whatever, I'm sorry. Article 13, amend general bylaws, regulation of fossil fuels infrastructure. Does require a majority to pass. All who are in favor, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It's a clear majority out here.
Clear majority in here. The article does pass. Article 14. Mr. Snyder-Grant moves that the town...
Bill, point of order.
A point of order, Madam Moderator.
Okay, go ahead.
Since Article 14 is part of 13 and 13's already passed, I suggest we just go and vote on 14 and don't discuss it at all.
That meets with strong approval inside. Mr. Snyder-Grant moves that the town authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court for a Home Rule Act in substantially the form set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? Is there anyone who has to make a comment?
There's nobody out here, Madam Moderator.
There is nobody in here. We have fully discussed the article. This requires a majority vote. All who are in favor, please say aye. All who are opposed, say nay.
Overwhelmingly passed.
Same in here, overwhelmingly passed. So thank you all for pressing forward and staying alert. We have now 15. Are you doing separate or the same presentation? Is this together, the presentations 15 and 16? Oh, that's okay. All right. Article 15, authorize payment in lieu of taxes agreements for solar facilities. Mr. Snyder-Grant moves that the town authorize the town manager to approve, after approval from the Select Board, enter into payment in lieu of taxes or pilot agreements as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Snyder-Grant.
Okay. Solar pilot agreements, or payments in lieu of taxes, are agreements between a solar developer and the town to provide predictable tax revenue for the length of a solar project. These agreements need to meet State Department of Revenue guidelines. The agreements are intended to cover expected taxes on the equipment and sometimes the taxes on the land that the equipment sits on. They help the town by not requiring us to reevaluate the equipment every few years. They help the developer by setting costs in advance. We've done 2 so far in Acton, and more are expected. This article is not about changing the way that large-scale solar projects are cited and approved. That process continues. It goes through the Planning Board and the Building Department and sometimes the Conservation Commission and the Board of Health. Town meeting has already approved pilots for solar on town property, and last fall we approved a pilot for one project not on town property. These votes have both been easy and close to unanimous. This article generalizes that approach so that the time from permitting to construction can be reduced to help get us more clean energy solar projects up and running without needing to wait for a town meeting vote to authorize a specific pilot negotiation. Please join me in voting for Article 16.
To the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Does somebody for the Finance Committee want to speak to this?
Do you?
We have a member of the Finance Committee going to the microphone.
The Finance Committee recommends this article.
Thank you. I see there is a speaker outside.
One speaker at the front microphone.
Move the previous question.
There is a motion to move directly to vote. All who are in favor of having no to vote? There's nobody standing. We don't even need to do that.
No, there's nobody out here.
Okay. All who are in favor of Article 15, which requires a majority to pass, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay. There are none.
It's overwhelmingly in favor here.
Same in here. The motion does pass. Article 16, authorize solar contract, low-income community shared solar facility. Mr. Snyder-Grant moves that the town authorize the Select Board to enter into a solar energy benefit distribution agreement as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? Second. Mr. Snyder-Grant.
This article would enable the town to complete an agreement for a straightforwardly positive result. Substantial credits showing up on the bills of most low-income electricity customers in Acton. These credits would be about $35 or more a month for 20 years, and they would start as soon as a large solar project on the Acton-Grace land is built and connected to the grid. There would be no financial involvement by the town, as the money would flow from Eversource to the solar developer and then show up as credits on customers' electricity bills. This remarkably positive outcome is enabled by new state legislation. Sadly, there are a few things that I'm going to explain to help make this more sense. Let's see if I can shorten this. Yes. The state requires utilities like Eversource to offer subsidized electricity rates to any customer that qualifies and applies. It's particularly easy to qualify if you're already in a means-tested program like food stamps or school lunches, subsidized lunches. The state created this SMART program, the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program, to provide for payments from utilities like Eversource for electricity produced by new solar energy projects. So the utilities get clean energy from the solar projects that they then resell to their customers, and exchange solar developers get a predictable stream of income. There are base payments for each kilowatt hour of electricity put on the grid, and then there are extra payments if certain benefits are offered, and one of those extra payments is available if the solar developer participates in what's called a low-income community solar system. What's that, you might ask? In order to qualify, a project developer must offer monthly credits on the electric bills of participating households. When we say low-income households, we mean households that are getting one of those subsidized rates that I covered at point 1. Each month, every participating low-income household gets the same credit based on how much electricity is produced by the new solar facility. And these low-income community solar credits are in addition to the subsidized rates that I talked about earlier. So there haven't been that many low-income community solar systems in Massachusetts because developers have felt that finding and keeping track of all the electricity customers in the program has been complicated and costly and not worth the extra payment in the SMART program. But what's new in the last year is that the state has decided that households involved in a low-income community solar system can now simply come from an aggregation program, such as Acton Power Choice. The Acton Power Choice, for those of you that don't know, it was created 4 years ago in Acton, approved by this town meeting. It provides Acton residents with an alternate electricity supply, with some choices about how much green energy to get, but I'm not going to talk about that. Most Acton electricity customers, more than 80%, are already enrolled. And the electricity provider for Acton Power Choice is already keeping track of all those customers who are getting subsidized rates. And they can make sure easily that the appropriate credits are put on those bills each month. So Acton approached the developer of the Acton-Grace solar project with the idea of creating this low-income community solar system via our Acton Power Choice program. And after investigating the costs and options, they were enthusiastic. Other municipalities with aggregation programs like Acton's are also moving forward to make these same arrangements with solar developers. This article is specific to this particular solar project. So let's see. The yellow outline is the Acton-Grace property south of the tracks. The solar system would fit in the upper right corner. near where the train tracks run and near the Acton-Concord line. Creating a low-income community solar system with this particular project is especially good for two reasons. First of all, it's a large installation. It's as large as can be built under the SMART program, so their payments will be as large as possible. And second, the SMART program is designed to encourage early adoption, so payments for later projects will never be higher than they are now for this project. We think it's a great program. It's created to benefit low-income residents without any financial involvement of the town of Acton, and we think that this particular solar project is the one to strike the deal with. Please join the Select Board in voting yes for Article 16.
Thank you. Recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee recommends this article.
Thank you. Just in case, I see no other speakers standing. Go ahead, Mrs. Chang.
Move previous question.
All right, but since there were no speakers, we do not need to do that. So we will vote on Article 16. It requires a majority to pass. All who are in favor, please say aye. Aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It's unanimous out here.
Very overwhelming in here. It does pass. All right. Now we're at Article 17. It is 10:44. I know a lot of people have a lot of feelings about this article and that it's very important to many people. Here's what I urge us to be efficient in speaking. If somebody has already said what you want to say, don't take up the time. Our petitioner, I agreed that he could have 5 minutes. There is a rebuttal to that, which also is allowed 5 minutes, to the degree that the two speakers can reduce that time. I believe the town meeting members will be appreciative. We'll hear from some people who I hope will make the major arguments in a fairly short order. I don't want to cut this off, but I think we had some of the discussion already. And
Bill?
What is the point of order?
I think you should ask
Good.
people
Hold on a second. Go ahead.
know how they're going to vote, so we can go ahead and vote now. Because we've already talked about this.
How many people are pretty certain how you're going to vote? What does it look like outside, Bill?
Well, I don't know how many are not certain, but
Okay, how many are not certain how you want to vote?
so overwhelmingly they're certain. But
Okay, we
the
only have
proponent is here. If
we have only a couple. Ms. Osman?
Yeah, I just don't think, I want to speed it up and I really want to do it quickly, but I feel like it's important. Earlier you told people to retain their opinions till later, and I just think it would be unfair to not give people any opportunity to speak.
Okay, so let us hear from the sponsor of the resolution if he chooses to make any remarks.
yes, he's declined to make the remarks.
Okay, in that case, we'll move directly to discussion. Yes. I do need to read the motion. Mr. Post moves that the town adopt the non-binding resolution as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? It's been moved and seconded. I see there are people outside, so go ahead and recognize someone, Bill.
The speaker with the front microphone.
Thank you. Dipen Joshi again, 14 Isaac Davis, one of the neighbors. So I wanted to call out here that there has been a process that we have been trying to cooperate with, but it's a forced intrusion of putting the dog park in this location. If you check a couple of areas around us, Maynard, Air and such, thank you. They have designed the dog park in a way where they have ample of space for the dogs itself, but it's good in terms of keeping the traffic outside of the main street. We already face too much traffic on the main street around Route 2. When 50 cars back up from the intersection of Main Street to Hayward towards the school, it's a nightmare. We face the same thing on the other side when you continue on the main street. All we ask is hear out and check for better locations that would allow non-invasive places, recreational areas and such for dog park and dog park owners as well. I don't have a dog. We are in a process of getting one, so I'm totally in support of dog park. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that we are allocating 10 parking spots for an expected population of around 600 to 800 dog parks owners. That would equate to 1 hour or 30 minutes per dog time if you do the analytical math behind it. If you are putting the same park or bigger park in another location, you'll have better opportunity and be more equitable. So if you can vote in favor of this article, that will be highly appreciated. I will not bring up the IDW driveway. Maybe my neighbor can speak about it.
Your time has expired. Sir. This is a non-binding resolution. Yes. It's to inform the select board, ultimately. That's, I'll recognize the speaker inside.
This mic? Yeah.
Yes.
Since the last speaker spoke for 3 minutes, I wonder if I might.
Yeah, that was 2.
That was 2.5. Oh, 2.
Or you can eat it up arguing with me.
So,
2.
I wanted, in my 5-minute presentation, which I will try to abridge, included ideas that we've been working on this for 4 years, included the fact that we've considered over 14 municipal properties, included working with all the town committees, Tom Tidman and Matthew Selby, our directors of land use and natural resources, and the select board, to do the very thing that the neighbors are already asking you tonight to do, and that is to find a better place than the Main Street site. If you don't know where the Main Street site is, sorry, it's in my slides, but it is that area right next to Kennedy Landscaping that has been consistently a bit of an eyesore, particularly as you're coming straight off of the Route 2 ramps. So we have been looking and looking and looking, and there are pros and cons to every single property that would be a suitable dog park in Acton. I won't go into those pros and cons. You're going to have to trust me on that. But our charter was to find the best location and find a way to pay for it. We've done that. We've worked with the neighbors. We've worked with town council to accomplish those things. And so what we're asking for tonight is a resounding nay vote, because we want a dog park in Acton and we need a dog park in Acton. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
Speaker at the back, microphone.
Helen Shedd, 4 Meadowbrook Road, resident, 42 years. All right, this is a discretionary expense. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not require us to provide recreational opportunities for dog owners and their dogs. All right? The town of Acton has the highest tax rate, I think, in the state. There are senior citizens who are struggling to pay their real estate taxes. Believe me, I know of people who are trying to balance what their medications cost and what they're paying in taxes, and they desperately want to stay in Acton because that's where all their emotional ties are.
And your time has
selling
expired.
their properties is not an option.
Your
That's
time has
like
expired.
asking them to go into an institution.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker inside.
Good evening. Kathy Fochman, Wright Terrace, West Acton. I'm chairman of the Friends of Acton Community Dog Park. The Friends of the Acton Community Dog Park is fundraising for the creation and maintenance of an enclosed dog park at 348 Main Street in Acton Center. Vote no for Article 17, which seeks to defund the dog park. The concerns cited in this petition can be assuaged by the town, and we should give the town opportunity to do so. Friends of Acton Community Dog Park has been actively fundraising and applying for grants since January of this year, shortly after the Select Board approved this site. And we have been working in cooperation with the Recreation Department. Thank you to all our contributors and partners who are supporting our grant applications. We've raised over $8,000 as of this date. We're expecting more money from our plea to our dog owners throughout town.
And your time has expired.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker outside.
Speaker at the front, microphone.
Good evening. I'm Laura Post. I'm a resident at 6 Isaac Davis Way since 1996. I've raised 3 children on our property and I am a dog owner of 15 years as of last Wednesday when we put we had to put our dog to sleep. So I've been very sensitive to the needs of the dog owners in this community for a long time. I have never, in the 26 years I've lived in this town, been treated by any of the town's people on these committees, the town council, so unfairly. The unbiased the bias toward the dog park committee and the unbiased approach to listening to us has been unconscionable. We were told by the Acton Housing Authority that they asked the dog park committee to reach out to us several times. I am on the AHA Architectural Design Committee. We have been in full support of the Housing Authority since its inception. We have never threatened or told them that we were going to hold up their project, as you have been told by the Dog Park Committee. We also...
Your time has expired.
No, I need to speak. This is not fair. It's not fair. It really isn't.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I'll recognize the speaker from inside.
Yes. Ann Corcoran from Martin Street in Acton. I've been a resident of Acton for 53 years, and I'm speaking tonight as a former chair of the Commission on Disabilities and current member of the Council on Aging. Dogs are loyal companions. They bring joy to many people who are living alone in their senior years. A dog park provides a means for those same people to socialize, to meet other people, as well as to give the dogs, service dogs in particular, the ability to run free. You can't take your dogs and take them off leash and let them go, for goodness sakes. We've got coyotes and everything else running around in the backwoods. So let's remember and let's have a little bit of compassion for those elderly folks who need to have a space where they can exercise their dogs off leash, because they certainly can't.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. How many people have not decided how they're going to vote? Okay.
Everybody's decided how to vote.
Okay, same in here. Let's vote. This is a non-binding resolution. Dog park funding and relocation requires a majority to pass. If you vote yes on this, you agree you don't want the dog park in this location. If you vote no, you want it as proposed. So all who are in favor, please say aye. Okay, all who are opposed, please say nay. That is a majority inside.
I'd like to take an estimate, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Can we just do it again?
Yep, all who are in favor, please say aye. Let's count in here. Sorry, you can put your hands down.
Okay. All those opposed?
Same in here, all opposed. Okay.
I have 49 in favor and about 85 opposed.
That's about 74 in favor and 130 opposed. The motion fails. We have one or two more, depending. Article 18, amend town charter, electing planning board members. Ms. Friedrichs moves that the town amend the town charter as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second? It has been moved and seconded. Ms. Friedrichs.
Okay.
Turn on the microphone.
And there's a presentation slide which I'd like to show instead of me. And please don't start the clock until it's up.
It's there.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. I'm here because the Acton Planning Board could do a better job. I'm going to explain what it is mandated to do, why it should be elected, and the benefits of having a more diverse board directly accountable to the voters. If you care about town character, water, affordability, and ultimately justice, taxes, and/or property values, then you care what the planning board does or doesn't do. Slide 2, thank you. The planning board's mandate by state law has two key components: deciding on developer applications and engaging in planning. Slide 3. Let's take developer applications first. The appointed planning board decisions represent a narrow view that does not reflect the diversity of perspectives one would expect in a democracy. A lack of diversity can't adequately represent the interests of the entire town. With a narrow sliver of viewpoints, we suffer overdevelopment at the expense of sustainability, affordability, and justice. Decisions have resulted in more use of water, more traffic, and a greater burden on schools and town infrastructure than necessary. According to the town's own numbers regarding PCRC special permits, the board has approved greater than 50% more houses than would be allowed by right. That's hundreds of unnecessary unaffordable single-family homes fired by gas. You may hear that they have to approve these developer plans because of vague wording in the bylaw, that we have to keep the legal costs low. But instead of working on ways to fix the bylaws or develop denials to better protect our town, our water, property values, neighborhood character, and other key community values, the appointed planning board allows the town attorney to pressure planning board members to give in to well-crafted, self-interested arguments of developers over and over and over again. Slide 4, please. With an elected planning board, there's a greater chance of having better representation. Slide 4, I hope. With diverse viewpoints, the town attorney will be required to look into ways to deny these terrible, next slide please, these terrible developer proposals. State law requires planning boards to plan. It doesn't say they can delegate planning to town staff or ignore it altogether. It says that planning boards shall engage in planning. By their own admission, the appointed planning board does no planning. It does not call meetings to discuss whether or how to increase land use protections. It only schedules meetings to consider developer applications. For years, documentation, the agendas and minutes show virtually no planning. It's all hearings for developer applications. The meetings are canceled if there are no developer applications to review. The answer was, quote, without an application from a developer, there's nothing to do. An elected planning board could use local law and regulations to reduce the amount of land destroyed, minimize the burden on town infrastructure and taxes, ensure environmental justice, reduce carbon impact of new building, protect water, biodiversity, historical and archaeological relics, and town character. Despite the legal mandate to engage in planning, the appointed planning board does none of this. The Acton Select Board, which currently appoints members of the planning board, has done nothing about it. They continue to appoint people with similar positions, sometimes the same people, over and over again. Slide 5, please. Like 70% of towns and cities around the state, we need an elected planning board to be accountable to the voters. There will be plenty of applicants that want to run for planning. You may hear, slide 6, please. You may hear that the planning board is short on members. Of course, they are turning away volunteers who do not fit their narrow viewpoints. You may hear they can't plan because of short staff, but they didn't plan before the staff left. You may hear that people would not want to serve on the planning board if they had to run for office, but by allowing anyone to serve instead of just a hand-picked few, there'll be more people who will offer to serve. You may hear the select board tell you to vote no on this so they can study the matter. In fact, the only way we can assure that the select board will be acting in this way is to vote on this in any way is to vote yes on this binding article. Key provisions of the master plan and the climate emergency declaration can't be implemented by an appointed planning board with a narrow, old-school interest in being easily persuaded by developers. Appointed planning board members can too easily ignore the public because they are not directly accountable to the people, too often swayed by well-crafted and self-interested arguments of developers. An elected planning board, on the other hand, can't ignore the people who elect them. It won't do until the planning board is accountable to your voices at the voting booth. Please vote yes.
Thank you. What is the select board's recommendation?
The select board discussed Articles 18 and 19 at our May 24th meeting and decided unanimously to not recommend them at this time. Our discussion included acknowledging that the planning board has had some difficulties, including low membership and the challenges of getting support from the planning staff at a time when the planning department has been reorganizing and rebuilding after the departure of staff. It was noted that neither of those issues would be helped by adding on an election process. There were some interesting disagreements on the select board about how much the planning board should take on reviewing or creating zoning bylaws and other planning issues. Having a future board discuss this first would be a good first step before reconsidering an elected planning board.
Thank you. The Finance Committee recommendation?
Go ahead.
I would like to point a misprint in the warrant. The warrant states the Finance Committee has not recommended this article. However, since this article has no financial impact on the town, the Finance Committee voted to make no recommendation.
Thank you. We'll turn to the town meeting members. I see a speaker inside at the back microphone. Go ahead.
Miles Fidelman, 531 Old Stone Brook. I have repeatedly been in touch with the city planner, the development director, attempted to talk to selectmen about Why have we not started our 10-year master planning project in 2 years? We're 2 years late at a time when we have to be dealing with climate change. And I have been told repeatedly, the planning board doesn't do that. We haven't constituted a master planning committee, staff shortages, yada, yada, yada. It's time to light a fire. And personally, I have professional experience in community planning, volunteered, that's gone nowhere. We need to light a fire. I say vote yes.
Thank you. We'll recognize a speaker outside.
The speaker with the back microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Catherine Black, Central Street. I don't feel the need for yet another group to be elected. There are certainly plenty of people in town who could volunteer to fill these slots and do the work that needs to be done. So I oppose this article.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
Thank you. So I just wanted to share the reason why I'm voting yes today. I believe the planning board makes very critical decisions that have a significant impact on our town. And they should be elected so that they can truly represent the people that live here. Accountability is critical, and the board should actively work to reflect the best interests of this town and to coordinate with other town committees to ensure that the decisions that they're making are grounded in financial, environmental, and social sustainability. The planning board has to do that.
Okay.
So the planning board has a huge impact on our town and what our town's future looks like, and that's the reason why I'm voting yes, and I encourage you all to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker outside.
Speaker with the front microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Alyssa Nichols, School Street in South Acton. I'm in support of this article. I researched municipalities in Massachusetts and discovered that 70% of them have elected planning boards, so Acton is currently in the minority. We'll be joining good company. They also generally have elected sewer commissions as well. So Acton, I think, is ready to do something a little bit differently. I do want to ask the presenter how an elected planning board as opposed to an appointed planning board might be better positioned to hand down decisions in alignment with the Acton 2020 Comprehensive Community Plan if they are still bound by Acton's current zoning laws.
Madam Moderator, do you want to allow the presenter to answer that question?
I think we will pass on that because it would be unknown at this time. I'll recognize the speaker at the rear microphone. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, hello. Joseph Buckrossi, 18 Faulkner Hill Road. I believe that I support voting yes on this article because of issues in the past regarding open meeting laws and some actions of members of the town select board towards the selection process of planning committee members. I think that a movement towards electing those members would be more open, accountable, equitable, you name it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
Speaker at the front microphone.
Move the previous question.
There's a motion to cut off debate that has been seconded. Requires 2/3 to pass. All who are in favor, please say aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It's nearly unanimous.
The motion clearly carries. Debate is cut off. We'll now vote. Requires a 2/3 majority to pass. All who are in favor of amending town charter, electing planning board members, please say aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
I think there's around 50 50 or a little, maybe 60% in favor?
It is much more than that. The reverse inside, there is clearly not a two-thirds. More people
Do you
voted.
want to do a estimate or no?
More people voted no in here, and if there were less than half or about half out there, it would not pass the two-thirds.
I cede. Point of order or something?
Go ahead.
I cede. I haven't gotten the two-thirds, and I think it'd be a waste of time. I got a significant vote, and I'm happy with that, and I'd like to move on to the next thing.
Thank you. Article 19. Ms. Friedrichs moves that the town adopt the non-binding resolution as set forth in the article. Do I hear a second?
There was like 6 people saying second.
It has been moved and seconded. Ms. Friedrichs, to your article.
Thank you. Please don't start the clock until my...
Could we have the microphone turned on?
Thank you. Could you not start the clock until
Just
the...
talk.
I know. I need this presentation, please. So, slide 1, you've heard about what the planning board is supposed to do and the benefits of an elected planning board, slide 2, so I won't repeat myself. Slide 3, state the Article 19 is for those who definitely want an elected planning board, but it's also for those who want to explore the idea of an elected planning board, those not quite ready to make a binding decision. This is a non-binding article to give a sense of how you feel, but does not require the select board to do anything. This is for those who believe the select board should prioritize improving the planning board and making it more democratic, make it better represent the town, and to have less of a narrow viewpoint that benefits developers. Slide 4. These are the answers I get about who is doing planning. If you respect that these answers the planning board has given so far, then vote no on this article. A no vote essentially means that you don't have concerns about a business as usual, developer-friendly planning board. Slide 5. I hope instead you vote yes, because these are the things that they could be doing. I hope that you do want change. As a reminder, they can reduce the amount of land destroyed, minimize the burden on town infrastructure and taxes, ensure environmental justice, reduce the carbon impact of new building, protect water, biodiversity, historical and archaeological relics, and town character. Slide 6. Please vote yes to progress the effort to improve the planning board. To do so, it is imperative that you vote yes to Article 19. It's a safe yes vote because it's non-binding. A yes gives the select board discretion and time to do something. If you care about sustainability, town character, water affordability, and ultimately justice, taxes, and or property values, then you care what the planning board does or doesn't do. Slide 7. There will be plenty of people who want to run for the planning board. Like 70% of other towns around the state, we need an elected planning board to be accountable to the voters. Please vote yes.
Thank you. I'll recognize the speaker at the front microphone.
It's Ray Jacoby. I feel compelled to mention, A, you've heard a lot of misstatements in the last 15 minutes. The planning board does plan. It's engaged in planning, but planning in Acton is driven by the select board. We don't need another competing quote-unquote power center. If you're familiar with Acton 2020, if you're familiar with Kelly's Corner, those were planning activities. The planning board and the planning department were very involved in those efforts. So to make it sound that they weren't is disingenuous and very misleading. Vote no on this very well-intended but misguided article.
Thank you. We'll recognize the speaker from outside.
Ms. Chang.
Move the previous question.
There's a motion and a second to cut off debate. All who are in favor, please say aye. All who are opposed say nay. Debate is cut off. This article requires a majority to pass non-binding resolution electing planning board members. All who are in favor, please say aye. All who are opposed, please say nay.
It looks very close here.
Okay, let's do a quick count because it's not close in here, but you have more people out there. Okay, all who are in favor, please put your...
I'm ready for the against.
Okay, for the nay? Okay.
I have 60 in favor and 39 opposed.
The motion fails by a vote of 76 to 82. I would now take a motion to adjourn. There's a motion to dissolve town meeting. And the second, all who are in favor? All who are opposed, you'll be on your own. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and your stamina.